And there flies the flag of the Kagyu lineage, what's known as the teaching lineage of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And as it flies and as those two spirals interconnect, the sort of a resemblance to the Tao primary symbol, the yin and yang, the artificial split of co-encompassed seeming opposites in perpetual interplay. A short while ago, a prayer rang out. And this year, that prayer rang out from Georgia of the Rainbow people. Similar to the diaspora that occurred when the highest lands of this planet in Tibet, in the Himalayas, the native people, the Bon people, who honored the nature spirits and practiced Dzogchen and gave technology to be passed down in the form of the Dharma and the form of the teachings that arose naturally from their nature spirits, that then was merged with the Hindu priest, the Buddha, awakened, who brought the Dharma in the form of Buddhism, which then integrated into what we know as Tibetan Buddhism. And there's four main lineages, and the Karmapa, His Holiness Karmapa, is still a tradition holder. The Dalai Lama has said there may not be another Dalai Lama. Perhaps this is what he has to say because of the censorship that we know of as the People's Republic of China. There's a lot of personality and collective potential for awakening. And the reason I mention this prayer, because there was a prayer that rang out, and it rang out across the hills of Georgia this year, and it rang out in the form of a silence of thousands of people holding hands in silence, around in a main meadow. Thousands, probably tens of thousands of people deciding to share a prayer for peace. Here on July 4th, on Interdependence Day, on the day that the signing of the Declaration of Independence occurred, where we could find an actual living testimony to the autonomy, the freedom, the sovereignty that we claim by choosing to gather together, to be a tribe, to awaken as a global citizenship, as caretakers of Gaia, of the planet we love and care for so deeply. And that love and care has gotten so shrouded, so confused. And so here on July 4th, a lot of towns spend over half their municipal budget sometimes, huge amounts of thousands of dollars, huge amounts of discretionary budgets on fireworks, on explosions, on a fake war to happen up in the sky. But in 1974, there was a prophecy that was fulfilled in the form of conscientious objectors, people who had been chosen to go to jail rather than go and participate in the hell that is war, or those who actually made it to Vietnam and decided to come back, and on July 4th in 1974 joined with people who chose to go to jail rather than go to war. Veterans for Peace, fulfillers of a prophecy, the Hopi prophecy of a rainbow tribe of people that would oversee all the differences of melanin, of tradition and belief system, to be able to arrive at a common caretakership, a common humanity, one tribe, the human family, one race, here to undo the confusion, to bring coherence and collective awakening to humanity at a time it is so needed, and only possible now that the bell curve is caught up with the Occupy Wall Street and the cry for a new system. Only now are more people experienced regional Burning Man, or been to that thing out in the desert that transforms reality with that much creativity, where every circus in the world can gather, and the distillation from that being the 10 principles, and that both of those authentic gatherings where people gather together are base in my heart and in my tradition what I've seen as the adhocracy of the gathering of spontaneous spirits to do what is necessary in each moment, to listen to all who are there and to try to apply what seems to be the closest thing to consensus that can be reached in the heart and the light of the urgency of the moment, both within and without. And so we're always trying to address and call in our prayers for peace an end to suffering, an end to our own suffering, and into other suffering, an end to the participation in war, and an end to the Federal Reserve System that is based on debt, endless debt, which itself is based on war. The extraction system that can be turned into a regenerative system. And when you look at the Rainbow Gathering of Living Light, which is just now ending its prayer for silence and arising as a great Om that turns back into drumming and nudity, sky-clad muds and dancing and people sharing medicine, people sharing tea, people sharing, you know, the energy and the music, the song that they've written, the medicines that they've made, the cashew butter. I've never seen a thing of cashew butter this big before, but when you go to Rainbow Gathering where there's no money that changes hands, the kitchens come in and people supply and bring in pounds, sometimes quite a few pounds of food, and give it away. And anybody who has a bliss, an empty vessel, brings that vessel forward and that vessel gets filled at various kitchens, at the main meadow, at the gatherings, and that's part of how people have learned so much about sharing. I remember last year at the Vision, 2 years ago at the Vision Council, there was this girl who'd been at Burning Man and she came to make fun of Rainbow Gathering. And she was brought to tears. She said, I've learned more in this week with all of you family out here in the woods. I mean, every single person is greeted with welcome home and loving you. And for a lot of people, family is an irony. Family is a sad excuse for abuse. And that's a very unfortunate thing. And we can try to replace that with a healthy version of what the operating system that made possible in this week-long city. It's really Brigadoon, but it's real, and it's been happening every single year since 1974. I call it America's best export. There's rainbow gatherings in every single city where people have freedom of speech and assembly. There have been annual rainbow gatherings now for over 15, 20 years, and the capacity for collective mind to do what is necessary. It usually takes enlightened leadership. It usually takes practitioners of Dharma. Here we have a stupa ridge here and a stupa where we did some prayers and offerings of fire puja yesterday. And here again, I wish everyone blessings on your independence, on your interdependence, on the non-exclusivity of opposites, on the merging and the reconciling of false binaries, and the integration of the system that is you with the system that is your surroundings and your environment. And as we learn to share our gardens, and share our techniques, share our rainbow toolkits, the rainbow of toolkits that is the Akashic record, that is every single one of our personal experience of the universe, that we are each an instance of the entirety, and that together, with each of our experiences mattering, and we get better and better and better at the communication tools that we learned at Occupy, at the magic and the joy that we know that we can bring when we awaken as artists, and we now shift, and this is what's needed, is that we are the immediacy, that we must become the citizen scientist journalist network where we can actually see what matters. In truth we trust. Little sister is listening. Thank you for joining us, family. Sorry I couldn't be there with all of you in Georgia, but for all of you who can gather together where three are gathered, you can create a sangha, you can share a prayer, you can keep that sacred fire burning. You can care for a magical, amazing space like this, you can activate a node, another peace